I'm Allison Jonjak, the Cranberry Outreach Specialist with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension. These videos are the on-demand recordings of UW Extension and the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association's virtual brown bag lunch series. These monthly sessions offer growers and researchers a way to share timely and relevant information. We hope you'll enjoy and continue to engage with us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Grant Holly. I'm the Executive Director of the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association. We are very happy to be able to partner with UW Extension to bring you the research needed to be able to navigate our ever-changing environment. I'd like to thank all of our speakers today for their valuable time and leadership, the growers for joining us, and Allison for being the catalyst from which all of these sessions rely. Thank you so much.
Start our recording here. So good morning as we cross over from 11:59 to noon, and welcome to the February 21st of 2025 brown bag. We have been having a good amount of questions. Usually our summer and growing season brown bags focus on the agronomic front, and then our February, March brown bags tend to focus on some of the more business-related topics. And thanks to that, we're able to bring in some experts. This morning, you're going to get to hear from Rick Grimm of InsightFS, as well as Alyssa Foss of DATCap. Wanted to go over a quick couple pieces of housekeeping. If you prefer to have captions, you should be able to turn on captions with the little ... button and say transcript or captions, and those should show up for you. I am recording this session, and if you have questions over the course of the session, feel free to type those in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. If you'd like to ask an anonymous question, you can use that drop-down box that's, instead of from everyone, you can ask a question just to me, and then I'll ask it anonymously on your behalf. We do want to thank both UW-Madison Division of Extension for helping host these, along with the Wisconsin State Cranberry Growers Association. Since I don't see Grant on the call yet, I will give a quick, the Growers Association is working on a lot of fun projects, and I believe that among the things to be aware of in this coming month of February, March is that they're revamping the committee structure within WSCGA. Quick plug, if you would like to help guide how we set the agendas for these brown bags, as well as for Cranberry School and for the summer field day, you might want to request to join the membership committee and then the subcommittee education, because that education committee is where I get all the ideas of who to have speak. So I think we'll move right in from that to today. We're going to have some both very frequently requested topics. Rick Grimm is the Central Area Energy Manager for InsightFS, is going to give us a thorough review of on-road versus off-road fuel and other fuel considerations. We've been having questions to Rick on a regular basis this time of year, and so I'm happy to be able to share his thoughts with everyone on the call. And then we'll follow it up with Alyssa Foss, who handles the Worker Production and Safety Program within Wisconsin DATCap. And Alyssa is going to work with you on how to ace a worker production safety audit. So given all of that, and quick good mornings, and of course, if anyone sees Grant hop on, I'll let him speak for himself. But until then, let's go ahead and hand things over to Rick. Rick, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity of letting me talk about probably kind of a boring topic, but you're right, we do get a lot of questions, probably more so in the last year or two. The state of Wisconsin has been doing a lot of audits, and I'm sure some of you on this call have probably experienced some of them audits already. So I want to dive into this, but I don't want to dive in too deep. I want to give everybody kind of the basics of what's going on. And if there's any questions afterwards, don't hesitate. Please ask. I wanted to put this up, and I'll leave this up here for a little bit. And it basically lets you know what you're paying in taxes. I don't know if a lot of people know this or not, but um, on the top side here, this is your gas. So this is your gas state tax, 0.309, and your federal gas tax, 0.183. So a total of 49 or 0.492 cents per gallon of taxes on gasoline. Down here, diesel, it's a little bit higher on the federal, the same on the state, with a total of 55.2. So that being said, some of you I know fill out an exemption form. Is called many different things: farm gas exemption form, or a state gas exemption form. That takes off of this 30 cents. You can never get out of the federal taxes. That there's no form out there that'll let you out of the federal tax. So you get out of the almost 31 cents. But by doing that, that's where a lot of these audits are coming into play. The state wants to know, what are you running this gas in? So anything with a license plate that you have licensed in the state of Wisconsin for on-road, you cannot burn exempt gas in. If they find that out, they will penalize you. They'll charge you very hefty interest. I believe it's like 12%. And they go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. This also includes four-wheelers, snowmobiles, or boats. You cannot run this or tax-exempt gas in any of them unless your four-wheeler or off-road machine has a private is licensed private use. Then you can. But anything not private use, you cannot run it in. And there's been, some exemptions in there a little bit, and maybe more so for the cranberry growers. I think maybe some of you guys got boats that you use on the marsh just specifically for the marsh. And I think some of them can probably be argued where you would be able to do that. But when you go through an audit, they're going to come in and they're going to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. You use this many gallons of gas. What are you using it in? It's kind of a painful process, I guess. So that's a big difference on the farm exemption on your state gas tax. Not too many people do it on a diesel because we have the dyed for off-road diesel and clear for on-road diesel. So you don't see it very much on the on-road diesel side of things. One thing also too is to point out there's the state of Wisconsin charges a 2% inspection fee, they call it. That's not built into this. Most suppliers do not build that into these taxes. They just build it into the price of their fuel, but it's there. It's a 2% or a 2-cent, inspection fee. Us as a vendor, when we purchase our products from a lot of ours right now come out of Flint Hills up in Junction City. When we purchase that product, we as a company have to pay all the full tax on everything that we purchase. When we sell it to you and you have an exemption form on file, we then have to provide a form to the state of Wisconsin to get our money back. That's kind of how that works. And that's where it's so easy for the state to come in and do these audits, because we have to supply these documents to the state who is buying exempt gas from us. It's a law. We got to do that. So therefore, then they're going to come look into what you're doing. I would strongly recommend, if you don't have a lot of off-road equipment that's running gasoline engines, probably just pay the tax up front. It's going to save you a lot of grief in the background, because if they come on your marsh and you tell them, I got 2 weed whackers and a chainsaw that run gas, they're going to say, well, where did 10,000 gallons of gas go? So it's not fun. But so I would strongly suggest that. One thing I wanted to jump down here in this talk I got on here is dyed off-road diesel fuel is subject to a 5.5% sales tax, except anything agricultural. So anything you guys do with dyed diesel fuel, because it's agricultural, you can be exempt for that, but you have to have a Wisconsin Streamlined Sales and Use Tax Agreement exemption certificate on file. Once you sign that, it's good for the whole time you're doing business with that company. That is not renewed. You got it signed, you're good for the whole time. And I believe most of you probably have this already signed, with whomever you're doing business with. But I just wanted to point that out because the amount of fuel that you guys go through, 5.5% of that, that's a lot of money. So if you don't have this, I would strongly recommend getting this. There are still some audits with the state that they can come in and audit on these. It's a little bit less painful of an audit. Basically what they do is they come in and they just have you list all your equipment that runs on off-road diesel fuel. And a lot of times that's pretty self-explanatory. So again, they not as much on that side as it is on the gas side. And one of the reasons is revenue. I mean, the state of Wisconsin, this almost 31 cents is a lot of revenue to them. So that's why they're kind of doing this.
If I can
So-
interject real quick.
Yeah.
I just put the link to the streamlined sales and use tax
Okay.
page in the chat if anyone needs to go through that, or that's now in the chat for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Allison. I'll leave this up here a little bit to show the numbers, but one thing too that is happening, and I think it's happening without people realizing it, especially in your guys' application. You might have a dump truck or two on the marsh that stays on the marsh 0.9% of the time, but maybe during sanding, you're taking that truck down the road 1 mile to a sand pile. If that truck's on the road, licensed or not licensed, and it's got dyed diesel fuel in it, and they find out, there's some pretty hefty fines. If that truck is licensed, it can never have dyed fuel in it. So it's got to have on-road clear diesel fuel in, so you have to pay these taxes. And that's the thing they're kind of cracking down on a little bit. Now, if that dump truck never leaves your property and you don't have it licensed, you have nothing to worry about. You can run dyed fuel, off-road fuel in it. But again, if they're leaving the property, going on public roadway or licensed, and they catch you, these, and again, I don't quote me on these fines. I really don't know. I just heard what people have paid, and they're very, very hefty. And they try to go back a year, 2 years, I've heard. They assume that all your off-road diesel then went into on-road applications. It's just automatically what they can assume. So the penalties are pretty big. And I think that's one area where people maybe, get a little confused on it, because that piece of equipment generally, yes, sits on your marsh and never goes on the roadway. That they're, like I said, that they're going to be cracking down more and more on that also. Again, it's revenue. But going back, I would strongly recommend that you running on-road, the clear on-road diesel fuel in trucks or equipment that's licensed are going to be on the road. And then filing for that 5.5% sales tax break on all your off-road. That'll save you a ton of money. So that's really kind of all I got without diving in too deep. I know there's been a lot of questions on this lately. There's been a lot of you have already been getting audited, and the ones who have, it's painful. It's a lot of running reports and providing documents for the state. If anybody is going through that and need help, I mean, I can help you out the best I can and provide any information that you may need. So really, that's kind of all I kind of had on it. I hope I answered some people's questions, but if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
I can ask a couple that have come in, in the week leading up. I knew a couple people weren't going to be able to make it, so they sent in their questions in advance. When you are, is the method that they find out, oh no, you've been using off-road fuel in an on-road application, when you are driving on road and stopped at a traffic stop and they check, or are they looking at mileage records, or how does this come to light so that growers can be prepared for understanding that?
Yeah. So a lot of times on the off-road versus the on-road, they'll look and see if you have any licensed dump trucks, let's say. If you do, and you don't buy any on-road diesel fuel, that's a red flag. I mean, they look into that. They will check you. That has happened a lot. They'll come in and they take a sample right out of your fuel tank. Then that happens probably more so than anything. The mileage stuff comes in on the backside of things. As a farm, you can file exemption forms, not through us again. This is not through us. It's going to be right between you and the state of Wisconsin. But you can burn on-road diesel fuel and then in all your equipment, and then file an exemption form for the pieces of equipment that were technically off-road or while that dump truck was off-road. You can then file mileage reports on that. So that's kind of where that mileage comes in on. So, and again, it is the state of Wisconsin looking, and being that we have to provide them with all of our documents legally, they look and they look and they search and they search, and then this is how these come about. So, and I think the more that they find, the more they're going to keep searching and digging, on other people's properties probably also. So
One comment came in the chat that they were audited and they think that it was their volume use that caught the attention of the state.
correct. So that's another thing that will especially on the gas side. So like I said, if let's say you got 10 pickup trucks on your marsh and you're buying all your gas on the state exempt gas, and you're burning 20,000 gallons of gasoline a year, that raises a huge red flag with the state, because they're wondering how many gas tractors do they have out there to burn this much gas. So that's probably the first red flag that the state will look at. Again, it goes back to if you only got a few pieces of equipment and that are running technically off-road gas, I suggest just paying the gas tax up front. It'll save you a lot of headache in the background.
I had another question come in by email that I'll ask, even though it is more on the quality topic versus the versus on-road and off-road taxing. If you get a batch of fuel and you want to check the fuel quality on it, are there labs that you suggest sending those into, or what's your suggestion for quality survey?
Yep, there are a lot of labs out there. I honestly don't know of too many. We have our own independent lab, but or our own company lab. We also use an independent lab. I believe it's through the Iowa State University, actually. And so we'll send them there. It costs money. But again, there's a lot of labs out there. I would just honestly research it. If you have any questions and want to do this on your own, sample it, send it into the lab. And there's a lot of different sampling practices to go through, so you get a good result, I guess I would say. But no, it's not a bad idea if you're having issues or problems, or think you may, because of the fuel. Another thing too is, I know a lot of you guys are running a lot of new equipment, whether the brand, it doesn't matter, but these new equipment manufacturers will also, if they see, hey, you got an injector out on a year-old tractor or a year-old cat dozer or whatever, they will test that fuel themselves. That's probably one of the first things that they do. And if you are not running the right fuel, the right premium grade fuel that they recommend, they will void that warranty. I've seen it happen. So that's another thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind also. But good question. That's a good question.
And then just a little background, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, but in my quick check, it looked like what you want your lab to follow is the ASTM D975 guideline. If that's wrong,
Correct.
please say so. But I think in order to make sure you've got like a certified lab that's going to follow
Yes.
um,
Yeah,
the tech specs.
that's the federal specs. So, what minimum spec of what the fuel has got to be legal to sell. A lot of times, going back to that, John Deere, Caterpillar, um, they're more strict on their specs. So, if you're testing it for them reasons, you definitely want to get the spec that they want. And again, it's the reason you're testing it, right? So if you're just testing to see if I got, you know, federally quality fuel coming into my barrel, that's one thing. But if you're testing it for a certain maybe issue where you're having it with a machine or something like that, you need that machine spec because some of these have tighter specs. So
Okay, that is good knowledge I had not had before, so thank you for that. Had another question come in the chat. What is the appeal process if the audit isn't in the grower's favor? Does the audit prompt the state to visit the farm?
that is a very good question, and I don't 100% fully know the answer to that. I do know um, guys or certain people have appealed it or tried to appeal it. The process is very lengthy. Um, yeah, and yes, they will make an appearance to the farm. That I have seen firsthand. I don't know if that happens during the appeal process or sometimes just during the regular audit process, but they have visited the farm. But that is a really good question. I do know, like I says, it's lengthy. The guy or the people who have went through this, it's pretty lengthy. And honestly, I don't know if they succeeded in it. I had never really followed up because once it goes through that process, we're kind of out of it. Then I just provided all the information and kind of go from there. So maybe some growers out there that went through that before would have some better insight on that.
If anyone with insight wants to drop that in the chat, whether that's with the to everyone drop down or the to Allison, and I can answer anonymously on your behalf. I'm sure everyone would be grateful for knowledge if that knowledge exists. But otherwise, oh, go ahead.
One thing I want to add real quick here is we've been seeing it does not matter on the size of the farm anymore. It used to be more of the larger farms would get picked first, but now it's anybody. It could be. We've had some very very small ones, hobby farms even, all the way up to the very largest ones. So it doesn't matter the size of your operation anymore. So I just wanted to add that.
That's a good bit of awareness. So
Yeah.
I do want to welcome people to continue to ask questions. Go ahead and either type them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. Are there, trying to, I think I have tapped out the questions that came in via email in advance. So do you more commonly see growers I guess I'll ask it this way. Do you have anything to suggest for growers to kind of do a self audit if they have multiple trucks and they want to make sure that their off-road equipment is staying off-road and their on-road equipment is staying on-road? Do you have any suggestions for how they can do a quick kind of self-check before or without the involvement of the state or anything, just to make sure that they're on top of their game? Or when you have people who start to go through an audit, what is the paperwork that's required so that growers can check through that paperwork in advance and make sure that they've got it on hand if they need it?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. One of the first steps is, I guess, is knowing what product you're buying, for one. And we all know that on some of these farms, there's a lot of people, that have access to the gas barrel and knowing what they're putting that in. Some properties have two different gas barrels. They have one for exempt gas, one for on-road gas. So again, watching that closely, spike in numbers too. So if let's say you add a piece of equipment, that runs on gasoline and is off-road exempt. And you spike your gallon usage by 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 gallons, whatever that is, that's going to be a red flag. But as long as you have that documentation, no, I bought this piece of equipment, this runs this, and so it's documenting that on the front side. And again, knowing what you're putting it in. Again, anything licensed for on highway needs to have the highway fuel in it. That's one of the first things they look at. As your pickup trucks are all licensed for the road, or your dump trucks are all licensed for the road, and you ain't buying no gas, no on-road gas. I mean, that's the biggest red flag. So knowing that is big. And the last part of your question there was, correct me if I'm wrong, was that what was that last part,
So
Allison?
what papers are they checking? So if I wanted to say, hey, before I get audited, I want to make sure my filing cabinet is
Yeah.
in the right order and I have every paper I need.
Yep. So again, it's documenting anything, your equipment for one, a list of your equipment, all your equipment, what it runs on, what it's used for, is important. Your usage reports, any tax exemption forms that you have filled out, always keep a copy of. Them are probably the biggest things. Is them three things they're going to look at. If you have them, that's pretty much all they're going to ask from you. They're going to ask you probably some more questions, or different things. But as long as you provide them all the documentation, they're actually very good to work with. They're not evil people by no means. I'm not trying to scare anybody off, but as long as you work with them and provide them what you're doing, they're very good. I also have seen where guys or people, just make mistakes, right? So they're doing something, they don't even know they're doing it wrong, until they get audited and they find out they're doing it wrong. And so, I mean, again, working with them and keeping your documentation are the two biggest things. So.
And I think one thing that I know a lot of the larger farms might already have back of mind, but if someone hasn't been keeping usage reports, what information goes in that usage report that I want to have on hand?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, which is important. They will at times, I guess I don't know of a specific time where they'll ask every single gallon that went into this machine and every gallon that went into this machine. But they will take your overall year's usage, and they will take a list of all your machines, and they'll kind of do the math there a little bit. And a lot of times on the diesel fuel side, I've never seen them where they say, well, geez, something shady is going on here. Most of the time that works out. The only time is when they catch off-road in a licensed vehicle, which is normally a dump truck.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's more your year usage reports.
Okay. And I mean, when the off-road fuel in a road licensed dump truck, that's like a dipstick test. You can see that dye, even if it's like one drop in a million, like that. Right. Am I correct there?
Correct. Yes. I have even heard of them as going so far. Let's say you run off-road fuel in your dump truck and then switch it to on-road fuel and not change the fuel filter. That red dye will dye your fuel filter red. I've already heard of them cutting fuel filters and checking already. To me, that sounds pretty extreme, but I've heard of it. But yeah, it's the dye check, but it is also the if you have licensed dump trucks and you can't show them you are buying on-road diesel fuel, and whether that be delivered out to your farm or going down to the local Quick Trip and getting it, you still need to prove that you are buying on-road diesel fuel. If you cannot prove that, they're going to assume right away that you are burning all off-road fuel in that dump truck. So that's probably the most important thing.
So people are going to want to keep their on-road fuel receipts, even if they're buying that off farm. That's another thing to have in your filing cabinet.
Correct. Yes, it's a lot cleaner when it is when you're getting it delivered to the farm, because it's so much easier to show. You just run a report, and yes, I purchased this much on-road diesel fuel this year. So again, that's probably the important thing is documentation and keeping good records.
Fantastic. Any other questions for Rick? do want to give a big thanks to Rick. You both spoke at a brown bag a year and change ago, but then also had spoken at Cranberry School in our kind of split track format. So thanks for we keep asking him, and he keeps joining us. So thanks, Rick, for being always willing and able to share your expertise with the growers. I know that's very appreciated.
Nope. Thank you, Allison. Another thing, anybody got any questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'll help any way I can. So I just wanted to add that. But thank you, Allison, for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Whenever we have questions, it's always good to have like, well, you know what? Rick absolutely knows this. I will continue to make sure that people are able to ask questions, either from Alyssa or from Rick, if there's anything that has bubbled up to the surface that you want to ask a question about. I'm also going to give real quickly the upcoming next couple things that you can attend. So our March brown bag is going to feature Katie Gantus of the Cranberry Institute, and she's going to speak on new products that are being registered and the updates in IR4. So I'm putting that, this is a link to register for that Zoom meeting. And then the second speaker in March is going to be Chris Schlesta from Rural Mutual Insurance, and they're going to be talking about the legalities and legal ins and outs of on-farm trucking. For example, the road mileage limits with and without CDLs, the exemptions for trucking fruit versus sand versus equipment. And so that's that Friday, March 21st. We're also currently tentative, but the UW-Madison Division of Extension has hired a new bilingual farm labor outreach specialist, and he started in the dairy industry, but has a lot of experience with visas. And so we're going to have, tentatively, and as we make sure everything will work out, but I believe we're going to have him speak on March 14th about especially H-2A visas, information for cranberry growers who have been using them or who are curious about using them. I don't yet have a registration link for that one since we are still finalizing the details of it. But then we do have a registration, and I'm putting that in the chat right now, for our 2025 spring mini clinic. And that is going to be in our usual fashion. We're going to have a live location. It's going to be at the Cranberry Research Station in Millston. We're going to have live stream locations so everyone can gather with their local community without having to drive, hopefully less than an hour for everybody. So Robert Detlefson will be hosting a live stream location in Cranmore at Whittlesey Cranberry Company. Stephen Bartling will be hosting a Manitowish Waters location up in Manitowish Waters. And then Tyler Gardner will be hosting a location at Jack Link's Aquatic Center in Minong. So we'll have all of our major growing regions will have an easy way to gather. And our mini clinic is going to be on Thursday, April 10th. It's going to run from 12:30 to 3:30. We're going to have topics that include herbicide timing. We're going to have a grower and researcher panel on sulfur use. We're going to have a grower panel on the nematode versus flea beetle applications that have been going on the last couple of years. Discussion of dissolved oxygen, dew point frost refresher, through bloom progression counts. So that'll be a lovely day, and everyone should go ahead and register for that at their chosen location. And then I think we are ready to, I'll glance at my time one more time. I guess it's 1:02. Any other questions, whether for Alyssa or for Rick? Then I will thank you all for joining today. Thanks to Alyssa and to Rick for giving us the benefit of all of your expertise to make keeping things on the farm a little more straightforward and have all of our filing cabinets in order. And I will go ahead and stop the recording, and thank you all for joining today.